feel the goo and people call, and the beauty of it all is I close my eyes and I see the line. To make those combos in my mind, all alone it gets so hard, and I wanna test some time with you. Just a goo and us. We can cook it if we try. Just a goo and us. Just a goo and us. Just a goo and us. Building that list every night. Just a goo and us. We see the line.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to Guucast number 13. We're here with Nesh, of course, and myself, Pac, and we have the one and only Jesse Kotton, 4-time champion now. This is dude, it's we finally got you on because Nesh can wake up on time. Oh shoot.
Yo, what's up? Holy shit.
What's up, guys? What's
Yo,
up?
Jesse, what's up with that face? Looks like you got shifted.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, but before we jump right into today's podcast, we just have a huge shout out to a sponsor of the podcast now, which is going to be Sleep Chiefs. If you guys see on the screen here, this is the new deck box that they just put out, which is the Pot of Greed deck box. So if you guys are feeling greedy, definitely go check it out and use GOO5 for 5% off. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. So Jesse, man, 4 wins, eh? Must be nice. Must be nice. How do you feel? Like, do you feel different after every win? Like, does it still feel like good? I can't even tell anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, it feels good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not much to it. It feels good.
Bro,
Obviously, want to win.
The funniest
Tell us
comment.
about your testing, your preparation.
Yeah.
Like, how do you test? How do you prepare for an event? How do you recognize if a deck is good? How did you choose to not play Beatrice in your extra deck?
Nash wasting 0 time and trying to make a shot at me, but
Nah, I
could have
like-
done better, I feel.
No, tell us about how do you test? How do you prepare for an event? Like, what's your training plan?
I mean, as most other players, I can't be a full-time duelist. It's just not feasible.
Yep.
No matter how good you are, you cannot live off this game. And if you are living off the game, it's through not playing methods. Like, I do technically live off the game, but it's through selling cards, and that's doesn't go hand in hand with play testing. I don't really have like a set plan because it depends on like the time I just have available to me, and
Yeah.
also how much time I feel I need. So sometimes I have to make, just a concession somewhere and say, okay, I just can't afford to do something, and then it may come and bite me in the ass, and it has plenty of times, like Minnesota, for example, where I had an exam the day before, which I didn't know about at the time when I didn't know about it when I booked the event, and it was like a brand new format because Dabble just came out and it was just after a ban list, and I was ill prepared. I decided, okay, I need to work, I need to do schoolwork. The amount of time I can allot to this. It wasn't 0. I did prepare somewhat for the tournament, but I couldn't do enough, and my results reflected that. But with the time I do have, I think the best thing for me is just theorying. And this is nice because sometimes you don't have to actually be in a call for it. You can just have an idea come to you spontaneously and just message your group, kind of get ideas to bounce off each other. Like sometimes you'll miss something super obvious and then your idea will just be stopped, which is a good thing. You want your dumb ideas to be caught early before you invest time in it.
Yep.
And then sometimes it may evolve into something actually fruitful. And then it's just practicing, make sure those theories work in practice. I don't do as much as I would like. And for decks that don't come as intuitively to me as something like Tier, that can also really hurt. So like in the spring when I needed to test a lot to keep up with playing the decks properly, and when I didn't put the time in, it resulted in me not doing well. And even when I did put in the time, I only felt like it was okay, not truly top echelon.
Yeah. So do you feel like all the YCs you've played so far leading up to Costa Rica was like just kind of like prep for you to finally win? Because you said like if you weren't playing as much, but then like you started playing, but you still played those YCSs, right? So you still got like reps in, I guess?
Yeah, it also definitely counts as practice. I mean, the thing with this format, we finding ourselves in a pretty unique situation. Doesn't happen very often. Where the deck building aspect actually isn't a huge part of the game. I think it does matter, but
Yep.
it's not nearly as important as it is in other formats. So then it comes down to playing, and while playing it is hard, it has a lot of elements to other formats that I'm very used to. So I'm luckily able to extrapolate those skills, and they transferred well.
Okay.
In other formats where that doesn't happen, it requires me to put a lot more work in if I want to do well. Just this time, I was fortunate enough I didn't need to do that. And after Pasadena, I didn't really test at all between events because
Wow.
I got a little more practice from each event, and I used that to kind of build my theories up and change my deck ever so slightly. And then also just kind of perfecting how I played my games. But honestly, not much changed, right? I'm also fortunate that I can pick up on trends pretty fast. So when you get these mirrors, I'm typically able to pick up on what seems to be winning line or what is the reason the games are going the way they are.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to isolate that, it helps me get further.
Yeah, I noticed that like when we played in top 4 of Costa Rica after the match, like we talked a little bit, and like you were able to like help point out some of the plays I did that like could have been done better like almost immediately, which I appreciated because at the end of the day, like I'm also trying to get better at the game. So like I thought that was like really cool that like you kind of like picked up on it right away, right? We're like, okay, you're like, okay, if you went for this different line with Hikalos and like you searched the Celiac, it would have been way more beneficial, right? So like just like small things like that, I feel like definitely helps. So yeah, I totally agree.
So you explain how Jesse literally clapped your ass.
Yeah, Jesse
And then
did clap me ass,
that's how you explain it?
and then coach me. Yo, guys, fun fact actually, guys. Maybe people don't know this, but if people watch my channel like very early on, I actually hired Jesse to be my coach. And he actually he taught me for like I would say like maybe 3 hours, right, Jesse? Like at least like 3 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, it was for a bit. Yeah, like
Yeah.
probably 2 or 3 hours of worth of coaching. I don't remember how much.
And I would definitely say that like the coaching helped me a lot in terms of like deck building, which is so funny because like right now like this format isn't like so keen on deck building as you mentioned, but it is important to note that like you also do coaching, and I would say that like coaching has helped me improve as a player. So I know, Jesse, do you still do coaching, or like do you even have time for it at the moment, or?
I currently don't have time for it.
Okay.
I'd hopefully open it up after Sydney. Just between, I turned it off a couple of months ago, largely because I had just my school semester starting up.
Okay.
And this should be my last semester, so I wanted to make sure that was fully under control. Between work, dueling, school, and coaching, I didn't have time for all 4. I had to pick 3, and I felt like the one I could drop the easiest was coaching. So hopefully
Okay.
when I have more time, I can start it back up again, but at the moment, it's just not feasible.
Bro, so post graduation, any plans for the future? I heard some stuff is in the works. So you want to give some spoilers?
I
to
mean,
the rest of the community?
I do want to explore content creation to some degree. I have no reason not to do it. I've already built somewhat of a name for myself through Sam's channel and competing.
Yep.
So I have, and then I know so many people that could help me get a head start that with those
Definitely.
connections, it just makes
Definitely.
sense for me
Yeah.
to at least try it. Like I should have.
You should definitely do that. It's literally free monies from your.
It's all Nest thinks
I-
about free money.
No, bro,
I've
that's
gotten
literally
there.
free bread. Like imagine someone like literally launching bread in your face, and you saying nah. Like,
Well, I
like,
mean,
you,
like,
you are insane at the
it's-
game.
Sure, but
You are
it's also
insane
like
again.
I have to give up something with that time could have been used for instead, right? And it's not
Yeah.
like I have any shortage of stuff to do. If I just wasn't doing anything, then yeah, it would be good. But I have to compare it to what I could have just been earning doing other stuff, and like right now I have no shortage of actual work for myself. I have lowered some of my product like orders just to in anticipation of spending some time for content creation, so that should be cool. And I
Yeah.
have like some experience just even if it's not like the same as working for Sam and Dual Knight. I do enough where I'm like designing themes and drafts, trying to like do coordination. Where I feel like it gave
Bro,
me
your
a big
draft
taste of
games
it.
are very funny. Like I would love to see that in action on your Twitch channel or YouTube and stuff. Like that shit is actually very funny.
Yeah.
I played one of your draft games.
Yeah, I mean that's just casual Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's awesome. A Twitter conversation about it last
Yeah,
night.
I was gonna bring it up. Actually. That's a good segue actually. About like about the casual and competitive aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I know there was like a tweet that was out there that was talking about like it's getting discerningly harder to distinguish between the two, and like it's harder for casuals to have a place to play per se, because if they go to locals, it's like people playing Ishizu tier, So I mean, what's your thoughts on all of that conversation, that topic overall?
I mean, I think if you want to play casually and they're entering a competitive tournament, they're going to get what's coming. I think that may not be what they want, but that's the reality of the situation. I don't think that's a bad thing either. Like, there's allowed to be a competitive space, but the casual space, and it's just being casual, doesn't need to have a tournament. Like,
Yeah, because it's
kind
casual,
of
right?
goes
Yeah.
against casual.
Yeah.
So you can when we make up tournaments for ourselves, we don't put anything on the line. It's just a tournament just for the sake of having a structure to the duels instead of like arguing who plays who.
Yep.
But it's not really a tournament. Like, there's no prize for the winner except for haha, I beat you, and then you make jokes at them for being idiots or whatever. And there's just so many cool things you can do with the game, right? And I was talking about on Twitter how with physical cards and not having like a video game, we're not bound by rules of like coding or just how the developer envisioned it. You can go past that. So if you want to play a very simple Yu-Gi-Oh, where you only allow vanillas, that's fine. Or even simpler, play it like War, where you're just flipping the top of your deck and comparing attack. You can do that. If you want to say everything's all types, if you want to do tag teams, you want to do like one of my favorite things at locals is we have a cube, but it's all types, and then it's also 2v2. And that is just a unique way to play the game. Or you can make deck masters. You can make like a board game. With these cards, your imagination can give you so many options. I think that's where casual Yu-Gi-Oh can thrive. And it may not have like an established base, but I don't know why that matters. If you're just trying to have fun with friends, just do what the hell you want in the moment.
Yeah. I think the biggest misconception I've seen floating around is that like, oh, if you play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, then you don't like fun. Like, and that didn't really make sense to me, because like I like even in like in Ishizu tier format, I always go to locals with like never Ishizu tier. Like I would try to like bring like branded Despia or like some or like the runic deck, right? Or like the Naturia deck, something different. And for me, that's fun. It's like clearly not the best deck, but it's like enjoyable for me trying to like compete with the best deck. And I think,
but even Ishizu tier can just be fun. Like fun is subjective. So
it
if
is.
you're having fun with Ishizu tier, then that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you shouldn't be told that's not okay either.
Exactly. Right. I love the mirrors. I hecking love the mirrors.
Bro, it's insane. Like, this is like, I don't know, Jesse, I think you agree with me, but this is, in my opinion, probably the best skilled the most skilled format we had in a while.
Yeah, in a while for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure when the last one of this
like
level is.
I think the last one that we got, like probably the most famous one, would be the Dragon Ruler format, in which like the best player would win most of the times. And
that was a lot worse back then, so I can't really speak to how well it was.
So back in the days during the Dragon Ruler format, there were some hidden rules, like for example, don't summon.
Yeah, okay, no, I wasn't garbage. I knew this stuff, like playing around Colossal Fighter, try lead with
all those stuff.
What the rock one was like, yeah.
And I was applying those kind of rules in the tier element format, and I got some informations, I would say, because people really think you don't mill 5 in the mirror, but that's not specifically true, because I heard you were milling 5 in the mirror. Would you like to talk about those kind of scenarios in which you were milling 5 in the mirror because you were recognizing a winning position on how to play your opponent on the mill 5?
So, yeah, I mean, the mill 5 ended up happening a lot more than not, I think, in the mirror. At least when it happens early. When it happens later on in the turn and you've established your plays, then it's less important. But when you're starting off your plays, looking at your hand and kind of the situation you find yourself in when you have the opportunity to trigger or set up a trigger for the mill 5, and say, what can it help me play around and what can it lose to? So what does it lose to? If they mill 5 and they hit insane, so okay, that's still like kind of vague. Let's narrow that down. What is insane? If they had a tier effect, is that insane? No, you can probably clean that up, and if that's, or
Yes.
you can have a shuffle guy. And if that's true, so then what actually is insane? Hit their own shuffle guy, and it's here. Okay, so that might be a problem now, but can we mitigate that to where that worst case is only a neutral? Yeah, if you have a shuffle guy, that means that worst case is like not even the end of the world. It's just kind of
Like, for example, I
so.
found myself in a position in which if you open Keldo, Mudora plus Sharon, if you go Keldo, pitch, Mudora, add Kelbeck, and you go Sharon, pitch, Kelbeck, I would always make 5 in the scenario because there is only one punishment that's probably the 0.0001%. And it's not even feasible because people are not playing Agido right now. And the only punishment would be if they mill a shuffler plus Kelbeck, mill 5, they mill Agido plus another shuffler that's Mudora or Keldo, and then they
That
trigger
and
tier
that's
on that.
that's not even like like that's extremely unlikely, but that's not even a game over anyways, right?
Yes,
Like if
yes,
you
that's the
maneuver
thing.
that properly, they don't have ability to link or normal summon or activate any of their effects. They can only do with the triggers. That
Yes.
gives you just so many more like abilities to do with the resources. So when both players are getting more resources, you can do more with it. Now that has to be true then that you are getting more resources as well. So it's not always the case because you can miss as well, but most of the time it is. I think that's the important thing.
Mhm.
And then the upsides to it are also just so high if it goes off favorably. And I think it going off favorably is not that unlikely. So, like for example, versus Polly in the finals, game 2, his hand is Imperm, Havness, Magnuma, Jewis Worm
4 hand
on the
traps.
second.
Jesus.
And he lost like decisively because I led with discard Kelbeck for Keldo at Agido, and then I start off with 3 bodies on field already that turn into an easy Baron Dweller. And I'm milling 5, and he didn't hit a shuffler. He hit a tier, didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter because the best mills are actually the
Yeah,
shuffler.
that's like an example of like how it goes favorable and like you're talking about the upside potential and that's
Yeah, it was
broken.
just,
Yeah.
and then I just powered through 4 hand traps. I made I forced the imperm on the kid. Like that's fine. He Havness, it's fine. I still have the shufflers. I milled 1 shuffler and then I had 1 on field, so I just it's easy. And there's 2 Bistrels, which can be a bit of a pain. But you
Yeah,
make
when you
Baron
have
and
a
clean
shuffler
1
on the
up,
board.
and then Baron cleans 1 up, and then you can do a little more. And when you're milling them as well, you can also set up Wallow plays, which is nice. And then you don't like see Wallow talents them or steal their Pearl Reno. Pearl Reno is so important in the mirror that stealing their Pearl Reno with
Yes.
Wallows is actually just really strong.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's really broken. I totally
Because
agree.
that cleans up the
I
field
think-
as well, and then interrupts for you. Because cleaning up the field for your first turn is important. That's part of why I had access code of neck before. I recognized that it just wasn't worth it because there were other cards that were more important. But it's a card in theory I'd like to have. Because cleaning up the field is something you want to do when you're going first, and you will have to do it more often when you're doing the mill 5s. And that's not a big deal. It is very possible to do so. You just have to know how to do it without being wasteful of your resources.
Yeah, doing it efficiently would actually lead you to control the game state. And at the moment in which you get the control of the game state, then it's another story. Like you just win on the spot. I mean, that's how I feel every time I play tier elements. It's like if I can control the flow of the piece of the game, deciding when to use my shufflers, when to use my effect, then I'm on leading position. And if I'm in a leading position, I can kind of control my interaction in order to lead to a win. And I think you would think the same way.
I think right now, like I know we're talking about like Ishizu tier, and there's like more cards that are coming out to support the archetype. Like Jesse, what are your thoughts in terms of like how do they limit the power of this deck, or like because I don't think people want to be playing tier.
Either limit all of the names, which is
Yep.
so you can't rely on mills. You have to be a lot more precise, which makes the deck worse.
Okay.
Make it Kalos, so it changes the entire like way to play the deck, or ban one of the names so the deck's kind of reach is limited severely.
Okay.
All these are drastic measures, but I think that's the only way because the deck has resiliency and redundancy at extreme levels.
Yeah.
And it's very flexible. We
Yeah.
played with so many different engines that I think Konami doesn't really have a choice but decides to either power creep it or to take more drastic action.
Yeah. I
I
think.
mean, but limiting all the names doesn't really make it unplayable. It would just change the way you play the deck. You would play with branded fusion stuff like that, right?
Yeah, you just
I
can't
still
play
think-
milling based.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, you
Scream
can-
becomes so bad in comparison. But like you just change the entirety of how it functions. I don't think it's unplayable, but it is a huge hit, and it definitely warps how the current game would look.
Yeah, I think we see
Obviously.
evidence of this too in like the OCG, where like their first ban list was like they tried limiting the statues. Like Kelgo went to like one, I believe. And then
Mhm.
like Hoffness went to one, or no, it got semi-limited. Sorry. And then
Yeah.
and then they started hitting some of the tier cards, and Pellerino went to two, and then the,
Oh,
the
what?
deck was still like just doing its thing.
I mean, because they got the Kashtira cards. Like, it's literally the same shit, Like, they got just another field spell, another rota. Like, the deck now has literally 7
Mhm.
rotas. That's
Yeah,
that's
it's
absurd in my opinion. If you don't count, obviously, it's 7 rota, like including only the field spell. If you don't count the monsters, that's another story too. Like, how do you feel that the deck will evolve in February? And
I haven't tested it, so it's like not an informed opinion. This is kind of just
I mean,
gut
just
feeling.
theory
It's
crafting. I
gut
didn't test it.
feeling. It's yeah, gut feeling. It is like from a very very primitive perspective. Is that Fenrir seems like a pretty strong card to be able to include in this tier deck, while also being a productive engine piece. So that may force us to change kind of how we're building a bit. Because Fenrir like kind of helps a lot with what I talked about, cleaning up the field, because it helps you with those bestials. Now those just get answered very easily, and it's not like a bad card to summon turn one because it doesn't contribute your combos. It also gets you to your Tiamat Costa now. So it's productive in multiple ways. And the main level 7 Draco Sack means it's more Zeus lines, but popping on your opponent on your first turn means you again clear up the field easier. You can also pop your own Selic to like play that way, which
Ooh.
is
Yeah.
which is valuable.
Yeah.
And then you can also do the dumb stuff where you can like go Cherubini with the 2 tokens, send Enchantress if you want to go like super hard, and then turn the Cherubini and the Draco Sack into Sprint, so you have a Griffin Sprint off
To
Draco
be
Sack.
honest, talking about the Enchantress package and how you are a fan of the Brave package, I was expecting you to be on the Brave package. You know why? Because there is the new Brave cards that's a fairy level 4 Earth that's searchable and it's also a free special summon. And I thought you were going through a line like that. Because I know that you are a huge fan of the Enchantress package.
I hate those cards. I hate drawing them. I think they are strong, but I hate playing them because I feel like I always draw stupid Draco back and Griffin.
Yep. But it feels nice to like play a deck with not
That's
as many bricks. This like
Yeah.
it was like such a nice transition because we came out of a format where like we were playing like hella one ofs that were like they were like engine requirements that were like, but they were god awful to draw. And now like we're entering a format where like these decks are like uber consistent, right? Like it's just like every hand is almost playable, just like some point, especially if you play like 3 Yugioh, which I know you are a fan of. And it's just crazy. Like it's actually so different. And I just was thinking about, I know you won in this format, but like, can you imagine yourself playing another year of this? Like, what are your overall thoughts on the game as a whole? Like with the Shizu tier in the meta.
It gets stale, and I think
Yeah.
even now, like it is starting to get stale. So I'm happy with it changing up in Photon Hypernova.
Okay.
That's a good thing because eventually it starts being the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't matter how good a format is. When the game's stop being new, it loses the enjoyment that Yu-Gi-Oh often provides.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted something that could be the same over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and very very predictable, there are many other games you could do. The allure of something like a card game like Yu-Gi-Oh is how fresh it'll always be and unique the games continue to be. So if we continue on this line of a Shizu Mirror, 14 rounds of tournament for a full year, I think I'd get a bit sick of it. Even if it is skillful, right? Winning isn't the only thing for me.
Yeah. Yep. Bro, so what's
Escaping,
next,
man,
bro? You
escaping.
chasing another ring? Like what's next for you after you won Costa Rica? Like when do you ever plan to retire as a duelist? What are your long terms like aspirations I guess within the space? Because I knew you
No,
grew up in Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly what to say. I've grown up in Yu-Gi-Oh. I've been
yeah.
playing since I was 5.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been playing to differing levels. But for the last almost 6 years now, I've been playing at the more competitive level, traveling the world, and then meeting people from around the world, like you two, who I can call my friends, right? And like,
Let's go.
if I exit the community, what do I do? And when you're not in the same space as these people, even if they are your friends, you'll naturally talk to them less, and that's one thing I'd hate to lose.
Yeah.
I'd also hate to lose the traveling portion because I like to do non-dueling stuff when I'm in these events. And then I'd also give up just the adrenaline you kind of feel competing at the highest level. So
I mean, I feel like
losing
fucking
those,
won't
yeah,
give you
losing
that
those
high.
three things just doesn't sound like something I want to do. So what would it
Yeah.
take? I don't know. Like, it is not in the near future for me, but it'd probably be a family. Like, that would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
Yo, Jesse's looking to let you dip the game so you can win.
Yo, I need this, bro. I need this. Nah, I'm trolling. Nah,
He really wants this ring. When win is not important, like like it's not.
I just enjoy, right? So then I lose the adrenaline rush of being a top cut, and that kind of loses its interest. I don't know what maybe I make it more of a business trip and enjoy myself in the traveling aspect with friends still. But that would be an if and when thing, right? So I can't tell you when that'll happen because
Yep.
well, I don't foresee it. But I mean, the game would be unenjoyable. And there are even periods of formats where it is like that for me, and I play less. I still travel, and I just put up with it still. It often just means I do worse.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something that I was thinking about since we started traveling together more consistently, which was I know you've seen like a lot of success in the last couple of events, like multiple second places. That's not even a knock. I think that's like really good still.
Yeah, it's fine. No,
First place,
people
like,
people
a
make
lot.
fun of that. I'm like, I'm proud of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
second twice in a row, or not in a row, but almost in a row.
Like a bunch
It's
of
incredibly
tops.
hard.
Yes, a bunch of tops back to back. But earlier in the format, like way back last year, like you weren't doing so hot when you finally transitioned back to IRL play.
The first half of the year, so pretty much Nationals, Charlotte, Hartford.
What was your mindset with all that? Like, did you feel like you got a lot of like backlash from the community, like, oh, Jesse's washed, or like that kind of stuff? Like, just walk us through your thought process as you had to like go through events where you didn't do so hot, because everyone sees your success, but I don't think people understand, like, I guess the times in which you don't always succeed, like how you deal with that, and that's kind of stuff.
There wasn't a lot of backlash, but there's always some. Even like now, you'll still have people hating or whatever. It's just a part of like any amount of notoriety, and it's not a lot, but it's the point. You'll still get some haters. Yeah, the first half of the year it was not great start. I mean, it was a bad start to the year. It was. I think every single event I lost either the first round of day 2 or the second round of day 2 in Locksmith Cup out of the contention. Yeah. Every single event I think in the first half of the year. And we joked that we were doing the same thing because both of us were into the same nonsense to deal with.
Yeah, we were both like
and it is a bit disheartening, right?
Yeah.
So I try and maintain a rock solid attitude as much as possible, but it is upsetting. And even though by saying I didn't enjoy the format as much, and I didn't, and I put in less time, I still put in time, right? So putting in the time and seeing no results is frustrating, and especially because I feel like my calls a lot of the time weren't even wrong, and I was getting close. Although I can recognize that a lot of those tournaments, my theory was better than my play, largely because I just didn't want to force myself to play a format I didn't enjoy. I was pretty much sticking in it with snow. The only reason I was playing.
Snow.
Yeah. I think every single deck I played had snow in that stretch. But it's definitely not a great feeling, but you got to stick through it. It's also like I've been in those spots before. It's not the first time.
Yeah, so
I
I
put
guess
up with it, and I know it'll pass. Yeah.
Talking about innovations, talking about like the other ways to think about the game. We got the new release of the structure deck for Dark World recently, and I believe it's a good structure deck with nice, good cards, and also allows your opponent to do a sort of loop from your opponent end, like for cards. They can loop Silva twice with Cerbuli, or I don't know.
Ceruli.
Ceruli. And I mean, in my opinion, that's good. Do you have any thoughts on the Dark World structure deck, on the possible ways to run the deck, or did you theorize over it? Can you give us something? We need the good.
I hate Dark Worlds. They're just only used for toxic decks. Like they were used in like 2011 when I was starting to like learn about competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like draw a bunch of cards and then beaters, then go skill drain like Eradicator deck Defi. and I was like, okay, that was fun. Because there's turbo that I can then do like play one of each of those traps and do that to me, and I felt so demoralized. And then it was used for FTKs, or it's used now and using hand rip. Like that's not fun. Hand rip is some of the least fun
Interactions.
Yu-Gi-Oh like possible.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I hate it. Is how good it is. It's the type of decks I don't like existing in because the extremely high power level, and if you go against them and lose the mirror or lose the die roll, could just be boned. However, it's not that strong into interruptions. So like versus graveyard disruption, specifically like Dweller, or even if she's using the Bestials, it's just not good. So going second, it's not very strong, and I think that'll be a big weakness holding it back from like top tier tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And then going first, it's just losing to the Bistrals, maybe not outright, but still gets hurt by them. I want to be playing something that's hit by Bistrals. I want to play something that's better.
I guess
tier.
it's more about you test the deck, you recognize how the deck plays, and then you interact properly with them using bestials. Because there are some situations in which the deck loses to bestial, but you have to recognize the exact position in which the deck loses to bestial, or you can keep the bestial for Silva in the graveyard too.
Sure, I'm sure the deck can function pretty well going first. A lot of those type of decks can, like they're excellent at making a crazy field. Even Crystal Beasts, like with that structure deck, I can make extremely strong fields turn one almost every time. Doesn't mean it's a top tier deck. It's not a terrible deck, and it can top at regionals, and it can do okay, but it's not gonna be a tier one deck. It lacks the other element of the game, and that's going second. It needs to be able to do more, and other cards aren't terrible going second. It's the same with Crystal Beasts. They aren't to the same proficiency as like a Sprite or a tier card.
Yeah.
Okay, so we saw recently people testing in a tier element deck the package of King of the Swamp and one poly with the new Overlord Dragon coming from the structure deck of Dark Worlds pack. And do you think that's a viable option for tier element?
Yeah,
Because
I
you
mean,
can
it's
use
somewhat
King of
powerful.
the Swamp.
Yeah, so what I don't like about it though is pretty much with almost any choice in tier, it's just that you're gonna have to be taking something else for it, and I have to wonder what it is. And when you're building a deck, you're not just focusing on synergies. You're focusing on building like the core of the deck first, and then figuring out what the problem is and trying to solve those problems. And if the problem with the deck is I'm losing to Bistrals when I go first, then I think King of the Swamp is a fantastic fix for several reasons. When you open up Poly or King of the Swamp plus 2 tiers, it's acting almost like an instant fusion, and the value from the hand isn't actually that big of a deal. But the fact that it gives you 1 extra fusion summon, and you still have the 3 names, makes the Bistrals a lot less valuable. And especially with the King of Swamp now in the grave, you can make a real Kalos, not even the Dark World.
That's my first.
Like either or, but either or, and that's just fantastic. That is very, very powerful. And then if you dump the Rhino or Merle, you just leave it in grave, and then the kit revives it. Now you're not searching a spell. Now you can search a spell or a trap off of Kit Kalos, which, if you watch my deck profiles, you know something I look out for a lot with that, because then Kit Kalos searching a monster is significantly weaker. And then also, if you find other times going first, you just need to get to a Kalos more often because they're like targeting down your kit, and yeah, it does help. So it's a good mill to give you more aquas. So if those are the problems you are finding with your tier deck, then it is a viable solution. Or rather, if you find there's another situation that could come up, is it's helpful going second with Guardian Chimera. However, if those specific things aren't things you actually need solving for, then you're adding yet more combos and synergies into your deck, but you're not actually fixing what the deck had a problem with.
Yeah.
So I haven't really. It's my exam season coming up, so I probably won't be playing those cards at the YCS, and I think they very well could be good enough, but I'd want to test to make sure it's actually solving the problems I want to solve. And the Bistral one sounds kind of nice, but I wonder if there's maybe a card that does it better without being as bad going second, which in King of the Swamp kind of sounds to me in theory, because Guardian Chimera doesn't sound that good going second. Or maybe there isn't, but that's just kind of what goes through my mind when talking about it. I don't have a definitive answer, but that's what I'd focus on and then use that approach to, get an end.
Yeah, and I think, it's so crazy because, like, for those of you who are listening into, like, the pod right now, bro, like, the stuff that Jesse's just saying right now is kind of like the stuff he says, like, in the coaching session. It's just, like, triggered, like, a memory for me. But it's, like, you always have to think, because I think that's, like, a very simple thing that people overlook, where, like, they just throw stuff into their deck that doesn't actually make their deck better into, like, the issues that it has. And I think, like, that's something that I, like, started thinking more about. I did try the King of the Swamp package with Pauly this past weekend at the Hartford Regional. Shout out to never topping a regional. But Yeah, I did see the Guardian Chimera actually putting in work in the mirror match, because when you have Poly in the graveyard, your opponent can't Celiac you.
Yeah.
And that actually is really important because you're able to clear cards like Rukalos, especially if they don't have the planet up.
But why isn't the Recalo stopping the poly?
Yeah, that's the thing. People are Papega, bro. I don't know what to
Yeah,
say.
but you can't.
I know.
Relying on your opponent messing
yeah,
up
yeah.
is not a
That's
viable.
the thing.
No,
That's
no,
the thing.
that's the thing. I
Like,
don't
if
think
you
it's
play
good.
against the chicks players. It's not our fault.
No, no,
We are
but
talking about
the point I'm trying to make,
technicalities,
the point I'm trying to make is, I just went Poly and my opponent just said okay. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying it's good because of that. I'm saying like I can't, like, that interaction came up even though it never should have came up.
But
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happens then if it's post side, which will be 2 to 3 games, right? Like,
yeah.
or even people still main, like a lot of people still main this. They just go crime. The f do you do then? Because if you can't chain block because
Yeah.
you're under dweller, you just lost so many cards. It's just a straight up concession at that point.
Yeah,
But I really would have rather the poly to be a hand trap, because one extra hand trap can make the entire difference if
Yeah.
you break apart the plays at a certain point.
No, I agree, and I think like we have to like talk about like concessions too. Like I remember like my deck went from like playing multiple traps and stuff to only playing one scream, one. I played 9 Bestials, so I only fit in one scream and one Celiac in my main deck to fit 9 Bestials and like 41 cards with the King, the Swamp package, and Poly, which like I never missed the other stuff, but it's like stuff to like take note of, you know. Like I just wanted to try something, experiment, which because like I wanted to like test the theory out, but I'm still not even sure how I feel about it. But it was like cool, you know. Like you have like certain theory, and then you like try it and take it for a spin and see how it goes. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just playing like that. That's a good way to play fun as well. Like when I
Yep.
build fun decks, it's often cool synergies together to have some broken combo deck. That's what I find fun when I'm playing advanced, at least. And sometimes it actually makes a decent deck.
yeah, bro, you were playing that deck
That's a
at
good thing
DK
as well.
tournament, right? The DK tournament. You were playing like that Thunder Dragon
That's
deck.
literally what I'm talking about. Just
Yeah.
random broken combos together, and sometimes it works out. That's how the Sydney deck I got second with, which was like one of my favorite decks of all time, came together. Was I wasn't going to go to Sydney, but I built the deck during Christmas season. I was just bored, and then I went to regionals for World's Points, and I just swept the regional. I'm like, damn, this deck's kind of nice. And then I played another regional the next day for points and swept that one as well. Like swept, like not losing a duel type sweep.
Oh,
I'm like, wow,
jeez.
this deck is just insane. Like I have to book a last minute ticket. This deck is ridiculous. And look, I fixed it a bit, especially because now I actually started talking to people to like help me refine the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you have these crazy combos do work together. But most of the time, throwing combos together isn't actually going to yield good results. And even when it did, there were ways to optimize.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about like, cause the question I get the most in like my Twitch chat, or like sometimes even in the comments, is like, how do you? Because a lot of people always ask me like, yo, how do I get into your testing circle? And I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, Jesse, thoughts? Like I'll leave it there, I guess.
Yeah, I get asked a lot as well. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. Is the thing. Like
No, everyone's crying right now. Yeah, you can hear the tears. Everyone's sad.
Well, for one, I have to trust somebody, right? So
Yeah.
if I don't know you very well, I'm not
Do
gonna
you trust me?
talk to you. Huh? Do I trust you, Nash?
You trust
I
me?
trust you.
You trust me?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I wouldn't
but
trust
even then, we
Nash.
don't test together. That's just one thing, right? I have to want to respect your opinions. I need to think you'll be putting in the effort, the time. I need to think you're trustworthy. Also, someone I can enjoy being around, right? And that doesn't mean that I can't add new players to testing groups or whatever, or they don't ever change. It's just that's a lot to ask for, and that's most people's situation is like. And then you also don't want the groups to be too big, because when they're overcrowded, like nothing can actually like
Yeah.
Too
form
many cooks
because-
in the kitchen. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then so getting into testing circles is very hard because you kind of meet all those criteria. You can make your own testing groups by finding people with similar, goals to you who are on the same wavelength you trust and are friends with, and that's how you can. And then you start building each other up. That's what you should start with. And I mean, that's definitely how I started. And then eventually, as I started like getting more ambitious, and I wanted to travel more, and my other friends didn't, I started meeting new people who had the same goals and joined their circles. Right. That's kind of how it was for me. But find people with your own goals and ambitions and where you're at in the game, and go from there and try build up.
No, I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not everyone's always gonna have access to like the top players, and some point, like I don't like. I'm like okay right now, but like when I first started, I feel like you have to like kind of find some value to like people when you go into like testing group 2. It's not like you just come in there, sit in like a Discord call, mute yourself, don't say a single word. You know what I'm saying? It's not. It's like.
Oh no, anybody
yeah.
who's actually productive is going to be upset with you if you do
Yeah,
that, because
exactly. Yeah, it's like
you need to provide.
it's like
some
give and
value.
take. Yeah, it's like give and take.
it's
like
a team.
Yeah,
It's
a
well,
team.
not really a team, but it's teamwork, right? Like
Exactly.
I mean, if you talk about team, there is always in teams someone that does more than another. Like we tried the team environment, me and Pac, and there were always this crap of bullshitting. Like I mean, just we were in luxury together, no? And there is always someone that doesn't do shit and come 1 week before saying, "Yo, what's the go?"
Yeah.
You getting fuck out and go out of this Discord call.
I
is the go.
have friends.
That's
who are, like,
that's what I would answer.
and they're like my better friends. I would just give them a deck, but I also don't want them in my testing circle because they're not productive and they're not helpful,
Yeah.
and or they're not as good at the game. And that's just, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And I can't, like, when it gets too noisy in Discord call, even for myself personally, I just become quiet. And then if like I'm quiet, and sometimes other people get quiet, and then the group's just not productive anymore. And that's not useful.
No, totally.
So
agree.
like to maximize efficiency, you have to like know some people shouldn't be in the group. And I'm happy to give out my deck list to some of my close friends. But do I want to sit down and test with them? Unfortunately not. Just being honest.
Yeah.
Like I consider it work almost. Like that's not what I consider enjoyable Yu-Gi-Oh. There are a lot of friends who I play Yu-Gi-Oh with. Like the fun formats, the casual formats I talked about. Like my friend Ned last night, we just played sealed Yu-Gi-Oh. Like open random packs and play.
Yeah, that's lit.
I don't want to test with them.
Shout to Ned.
I'm talking about like theory crafting and stuff like that, bro. I'm sorry. Like I respect you, I love you. I think you are an insane player, but you need to fucking explain me why there is no Readware and there is no Beatrice in your extra deck. Because let me explain before. Let me explain my thought process behind Beatrice and Readware before you kill me. Okay?
Sure, but let me interject briefly with this first. I'm never going to be 100% certain in my like opinions, and I'll always be open that the fact could be wrong. So please explain your ass off here, because you may enlighten me with something I'm not aware of.
Okay, so you're running Spring in your extra deck because it's an extra line to go into Merle. And isn't Readware an extra line to use the Sharon effect in the graveyard? Or isn't Beatrice an extra line in order to give you an extra trigger effect in the graveyard in order to run an extra interruption, or in order to fusion in your in your opponent turn or during your own turn? And also the Beatrice plays around the beast by sending Rhino Art if you have a tier element in name in your hand when you handle, for example, with Beatrice Dweller plus a counter trap set, so you can use during the draw phase Beatrice in order to send the Rhino Art, and that also plays around the beast in your opponent.
All right, well, give me a chance to respond, okay? Because you was not engaging in a discussion.
Yo, that was some super poly like speed run. Yo, what
Speaking
the
so fast, so I couldn't get a word in. So there are ways to get to more names. But at what point is it diminishing value, right? You stop playing hand traps at a certain point because they're stop being useful. You play Zeus, why not you play access code or all these other ways to clear field, right? You don't need infinite ways. That's the first thing. But then also, they use different resources. So sometimes the resources can be used for something else. So when I'm using 2 4s to make Redoer, that could have been Dweller or Braguska a lot of the time, or it could have just been Charmer into Sprint. So if it could have been Sprint into Charmer, then it accomplishes the same-ish thing. Not exactly, but same-ish. Which already makes, like, the Redoer... It shows that diminishing value there. But then it also... Then the 2 4s could have been a Dweller or Braguska, which I think is huge. That's why I think, like, that's not as important. I do think Reader is a good card, and I would love to fit it, but the hard thing for me is finding what I'd like to cut. As for Beatrice, it's similar. Like, what am I giving up for it? I'm giving up 2 6s that could be a Wallow. And I think Wallow is insane.
Man, you can play both. You can play both. You can play Beatrice and Wallow. I don't see the issue.
I would love to play both. Okay, so here's I'm gonna save you a bit of time. I don't play Baron anymore because Orange Light's at 1. I'm not.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I didn't like Baron before. Imagine now.
And it will be either Breachers or Redoer in my deck. I do agree those are the 15th spot in my deck. However, I am not like Asta would be the other one that is worth cutting. But I like
Ausa, I don't know why you're playing Ausa. I don't know why you're playing Ausa. It in my opinion only made sense if your opponent has Ferrin in the graveyard. And in the OCG format, it makes sense because there is a Ferrin in your opponent graveyard and Max Chi is popular. So it makes sense Ausa there. But I don't see why you should play Ausa.
What if I go... So what can happen pretty often is this is just one scenario, but there are several. As I do the Keldo play, discard a mill 5, and then I hit my I go Guido, and I Guido, and we both whiff, but he hits a shuffler, and the shuffler's not forced. I need a way to force the shuffler now. And Asa's a good way to force it, and then turns into sprint afterwards. So Asa's a good way, especially because I'm playing a Guido. I have a lot of Earths on field. It's a way to convert my monsters into tier access. Because otherwise, I don't have anything. The only way to do it is using sprint. Other way would be to use like Redoer with a Sharon. That requires me to have Sharon, or in more complicated scenarios, Rhino. But that may not always be possible. But then that also just means like the Earths by themselves don't do anything. And I think that's what I like from Alsa. And they can also, so yeah, it forces their what's it called? Sometimes their shufflers.
The shufflers.
And then it's just converting the Earth bodies into sprint. So I can turn bodies that could be used for Dweller into sprint if I need tier access still.
I mean, would you go well at direct?
I'm playing 3 Agido as the thing, right? So I have Earths on field significantly more often than people who don't play Agido. And when you have 3 Earths on field, what the hell do you do with those?
You just go Dweller and then you link line. You go Dweller effect. I don't give a fuck about my Dweller anymore. I just
okay. Well, first of all, I don't like Dwellering.
Nah,
early.
Dwellering early is
Dwellering
bad because
early
you
is
lose a
not
callback.
that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is rough. Like that is. I learned very quickly. That was they were very.
No, you don't do
did
that. You don't do that. Like, one second. Let's explain 1 second. I'm not gonna int into Callback. I'm not gonna int into Callback.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
sure.
let's be real.
You do have to. She'll leave the 3 bodies up, so that kind of limits your options because you have 3 bodies up already. But then those 3 bodies kind of just sit there, and they're not actually being productive your turn. Then only one of those bodies is. And I think you could just like make the 4s back later pretty easily with like summon back Rhino off of Kit.
Yep.
Then you have the 4 there.
No, I think also actually makes sense the more I think about it, because Asua forces your opponent to actually activate the shuffler. If they don't activate it, then you now have their shuffler on your board, which is crazy.
It is so bad if they don't use it.
It's so bad if they don't use it. So I think actually forcing it, because okay, like if you don't, the only other way to force it is to make Dweller effect. But we already agreed that Dweller early is bad. So using also to force it is actually good. I just didn't like. I just don't, bro. We need a 20 card extra deck. Like,
I think being put in these positions where we have to make concessions is where you get,
it's probably good. Yeah, it's probably good.
The discourse in the game like kind of gets elevated a bit. So I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I do think it's very close, but every single one of the YCSs that I've played with Shizu and Shizu, I have not summoned also a ton, but I've summoned it multiple times, and every time I have, it has been no other card that could have worked in its spot, and it's been useful. So I do like Asa. And I agree it is maybe worth cutting for something for one of the other 2 cards, but I just don't think. I just think Asa is worth it.
Let me give you an additional.
And especially if you're playing 3 Redoer, Sprint, and Beatrice, it's like even just playing the second one. The third one is even more diminishing return on ways to activate tiers, right? So that is like means it's less impactful. And then continuing on just that topic of like getting to tiers, when you're milling more, you have more access to tiers. Your opponent's game plan switches from trying to stifle my resources early by banishing the tiers immediately to trying to make my win a value game, not just hitting tiers immediately, because I'm going to hit 3 tiers most likely in my turn 1. They may get a couple free cards as well, but I'm seeing my 3 tiers more frequently. And if that's the case, then cards like Reader and Beatrice are a lot worse. Like, that was the biggest thing for me with Beatrice. Was once I had the 3 tiers, Beatrice was significantly weaker. And while sometimes Beatrice can get you going, when I'm milling more and playing less non-engine, I'm not in that spot as often. So while we can get into these discussions about the extra deck cards, it's also important to keep in mind how that changes with respect to how our main deck looks. Because if my main deck is not the exact same as a lot of other builds, specifically the 3 Agidos is a huge difference between what I do and a lot of other people don't seem to do. And that does make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I agree. It does make a huge difference. But let me give you an additional value.
Sure. Yeah.
This turned into a theory session.
No, bro, I love it. I love it, bro. I would love every Guucast to be like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
If people understand it, it's good. If they don't understand, I don't give a fuck. They better understand. Okay, hear me out. sprint in the extra monster zone, right? And you have a redo banish that's gonna come back. Now your redo using the effect to steal on top of your opponent's deck
That's nice.
is a huge value.
Okay,
Because
hold
now
on.
you have a sprint
Pause. I
bounce.
got you right here, you son of a bitch. we just talked. We just talked about how it's not. It's important not to fixate on random synergies just because it's a synergy. That is a sick synergy, and it's
Bro,
cool. But what
I
problem
love
is that fixing?
I love it. I just love it. I was just gonna say that. I just love it. But if we
It's
want to talk
important
about
to know
synergy-
that, and it is kind of nice, and it is an uptick in readers' favor. But I don't think it's a big thing. The main thing to focus on is what am I trying to accomplish, and is it actually doing that for me?
Yeah.
Asa has just been the bridge that I need most of the time.
Okay.
I think Beatrice
Okay.
probably will be put in my deck because with the Bistrels can get a bit cloggy sometimes, and the Beatrice can get you going, where Wallow fills a different role. I think Wallow's too insane to cut those, so I don't want to cut it.
I know, I agree. Wallow is good. No, I'm playing Wallow, I'm playing Beatrice. Like, I'm literally playing Joshua extra deck. That's literally that, because European people are literally playing the same extra deck, to be honest with you. Like,
I think there's
it's
not
already
much
fixed.
room to really debate stuff, right? Like, unless you're playing the King of the Swamp, it's like Baron becomes significantly worse than one Orange Light, so fine. I think Baron was insane before, though. But
Yeah, I guess.
then
fine.
it's just like Asa, Redo, or Beatrice, kind of like the flex spots. I think I was the only one ever playing Access Code anyways, but that's been phased out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have. Do you want to hear an hot take? I actually have an hot take for you. Actually, I have an hot take because a lot of people would disagree with me. A lot of people would actually disagree with me.
I'm gonna say something just
Uh,
cold as hell right now, Pac. I'm just
No.
calling
Yeah,
this- I
bro.
just know it.
No. I'm actually gonna say something that's an hot take.
Huh.
I fucking hate triple tactical talents in the side deck when I decided to go first. I love the sprite package in the side deck, and I play gigantic in the extra deck because I prefer way more the synergy with the gigantic. Undershifter, for example, is better. It gives you extra value to your level 2.
Shifter, what the hell are you talking about? In tier? What are we talking about?
No. Undershifter.
Like
When you go
he's,
second.
he's and he gets shifted.
Yeah, I go shifter and I end with sprite red. I sided 4 sprite cards. 1 red, 1 blue, 1 jet, 1 sure. And I don't need to side back row 8 because now I have an accessible ways to I have 2 accessible ways to deal with floodgates, which is a sprite smasher and the tier elements earthpit, right? And I don't like triple tactical talent because it doesn't really help you to combo when your opponent doesn't have anything and it's gonna be dead in your hand. When if you combo, it's gonna be a win condition instantly. But I bricked on that shit too much that I prefer way more the sprite engine in the side deck instead of triple tactical talent.
I
Now
think
you might hate me because I know triple tactical talent is insane, but I really suggest people to
so.
test the
I want you to
sprites.
understand. I really don't like talents that often as a card.
Thank fucking God, I love you.
I think right now though it is very strong. I think the big difference may be is that your deck just has less engine. Like
Yeah.
Like, your Ishizu cards don't get you going as much because you don't have the Guidos putting as many bodies or milling 5 as much. At least that's what I'm pretty sure the decks look like. And that may make your deck slightly more bricky, and that may put the talents over the top. I think talents going first is one of the best cards because when you get hand trapped, you have to look at your opponent's hand. It's so
game.
goddamn
I've-
strong.
I've
If you
never-
can
I've
play
never-
anyone
I
afterwards,
agree.
you just
I
win on the
agree.
spot. Yeah, and then if you can't, also just the flexibility of drawing 2 or stealing. And if it's not Druid Swarm, stealing is really good.
Bro, I pray to
think it,
everything.
like,
that
I pray
makes
to
it-
everything. I hope my opponent
And that
don't
makes
draw
it.
talents.
Yeah,
Mhm.
every single time I play going second, I'd be like, cool, I win this game unless they have talents. And talents is the breaker. Now, on that thing is though, you kind of said 2 things. Talents and Sprite. The talents, they're not really connected. You kind of just said you
No.
didn't like one, you like the other. The
Yep.
Sprite one sounds interesting. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'm curious if it's better than talents. Maybe because you wanted something that had a little more like combo ability to it and wasn't as reliant on your opponent doing something. So maybe in a specific
Yep.
build that makes sense. But I think that's cool. That's another extra deck spot. That there is absolutely validity to it. Smash is an insane card. Red is solid. And obviously the Sprite cards. We proved that we've played Tier and Sprite together before. We know they work well together. So
Yes.
I don't think that's a bad take. I think specifically the talents one I'd have to disagree with though because I think that card is just so strong.
I
every
agree.
time
it's very
I go
strong. It's
second-
just I don't have the flex spots. I don't have a way to side the
I mean,
talent. and the
I
sprite
side out
stuff.
Bistios when I go first. That's how I fit it.
Yeah,
Like,
I
do-
set up Bistrels too.
I
Not all of them.
decided
Like
to
Magnum
do,
was
but I
insane.
don't
I was not a
anymore.
Magnum, but yeah.
Yeah, I set out
I mean,
three,
I
like
said
whatever. Yeah.
I said to Druid to Saronir, and I put 4 Sprite cards. That's about it when I go first.
Yeah.
How many Screams do you play in the main deck?
2.
Why don't you decide on the Scream? That's what
Yeah,
I do. I think the card's I
That
think the
card
card's
that
insane.
card is stupid. That card is actually
That card
stupid.
is how you win the mirror match when you
Bro.
get hand trapped.
Yo,
The thing,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you're saying like
that card is
they don't
crazy.
hand trap you, the talent is dead. That's typically
Wait.
fine. It's always bad if you brick and like
Yeah.
hopefully you're building the deck in a way where that's not a frequent occurrence.
I mean, I felt like every time my opponent has to beasted, if I can get access to the Sprite engine, I still win because Smasher is gonna deal with the field spell, which is usually how they break your board. And I have a Sprite elf that's gonna target already my graveyard that plays around the beast, and my opponent really cannot use his shufflebacks. So I mean, I felt it was very good, like very fucking good every time I was solving it.
So I don't have
So-
time to test, so I can't tell you if that's a good theory, but I don't think it's bad. I think it has promise.
No, but I
see
feel like
talent is
talent is
insane,
insane.
so I feel like
Yes, I agree with you. I think talent is insane. It's just that shit was breaking my
The
head.
alert to Sprite is theoretically you don't have to draw these cards or cards you can search. So I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, before we end, because we're coming up on like the 1 hour mark, and I know we could go on
Yeah.
forever, but you know you haven't been sleeping that
I
well.
kind of
you've
want to
been
go
telling me.
forever. What the fuck you saying? But I don't want to end it.
But hey, we have guests that have other things to do too, man. So, I wanted to get your thoughts on Master Duel before we head out, because I know like it's been gaining a lot more popularity recently. I would say, and especially like there was a big Master Duel Invitational that happened over in Europe. What are your thoughts on it potentially happening in like North America? What do you think things they need to do to have it succeed? Right? Is it the step in the right direction? Like all that kind of stuff. Just overall general thoughts, I guess, as the last
I feel
topic.
like they just need to keep it fresh, like communicate with the player base more, right? Like tell us when we're getting expansions, create like content for it. Like that tournament was absolutely a step in the right direction. And then now announcing opens for people that aren't already like have a name for themselves. That's fantastic. That's definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, I could talk about format or whatever, but that's going to change constantly, and it's also subjective. Like I don't like that format. I talked about how it's similar to the format we had at the start of the year with adventure stuff. I don't like that. So I'd rather, in that perspective, it's not something I'd want to go back and play. I only like the grass decks. And I hate Max C.
I guess the question that I guess I want to hear your thoughts on is if you could go to Worlds through Master Duel, but you have to play best of ones, would you do it? Like, would you grind that?
Master Duel is best of one is rough. Like I don't like it as a competitive format.
Okay.
But he will do that.
If it was a one-time nationals and it didn't conflict any other day, would I try? Probably. But again, it's another thing on my plate where I have to allot time between that, regular Yu-Gi-Oh, and the other like things I have to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if it'll likely be like even the Remote Duel YCS this weekend, I will play and I will kind of try, but I will also put very little effort into ahead of time and kind of just hope it goes my way.
Man, we see how that
and,
goes.
like,
I hate you. I hate you.
For this weekend, but this format is the same. So I've already put in the work.
Yeah. I know.
If I'm
I know.
not playing Master Duel frequently and then I'm jumping in straight away, I will definitely be worse off. I may be better than like large chunk of players, but I'll be in the top percent that gets to Worlds. Probably not. So then if to like actually qualify that way, it'd be like, damn, I have to put in time, effort, and then can I afford to do that? Would I choose to do that? I don't know. Maybe pick on the format. Maybe that's the thing where if there's a lot of frequent Master tournaments and TCG tournaments, I can pick between the two, whichever I'm preferring. Maybe, but then if it's Master, I feel like if it's all online, I lose the aspects of the game, like the in-person socialization and traveling that comes with real life Yu-Gi-Oh. So I don't know.
Why are you being so ethical and politically correct? Well, like, let me speak on the matter. You're gonna shit on them. I saw Master Ball people play. Holy crap!
Yeah, okay, but that's like entering. Okay, those players like that are low tier aren't going to be the ones playing in the tournaments. They'll peter out pretty fast. you're playing the same level of players you're playing in regionals and then YCSs, and I think it'll kind of scale up in similar fashions.
Yeah.
It's just on a much larger scale online because it's more accessible, and the top players will still be really good at the game.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one, Chief. Anyways, we
Well, they
go
could
in
be
a
the
very-
same players as the TCG though.
Yeah.
could
I
be
mean,
players that
it might
play
be.
both.
They might be. They might be. They might be.
Yeah.
And
What,
that's
if it's what if it's Pack at the top? You're gonna call him crap?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
always do that. So
Yo, I'm sick, man. But all right, Jesse, thanks for coming on and giving us your thoughts on just overall Shizu tier, what it means to be a champion 4 times. Freaking, I don't even know, bro. When you get the 5th one, Jesus, bro. But yeah, it's been great.
Try.
It's cool to hear your thoughts on everything. Jesse, any shouts from your end, just overall?
Yeah, sure. So shout outs to Luxury Gaming,
Let's go.
sponsor that you guys used to be a part of, but I've ditched.
Yeah.
That's all right though.
I'm still
great,
supportive.
and,
I'm still supportive of the brand.
no, we are still
Yeah.
supportive. We still love luxury,
Yeah.
and
they help me out a lot, and
Nick.
I am very appreciative of it. Shout outs to everyone that supports me. Right, I have people I've never met before. They give me support, and it doesn't go unappreciated. And then close friends, playtesting partners, and family all
Let's go.
keep me in the game and help a lot.
wait, is still Sala your friend, by the way? After you shit,
Why
on
wouldn't he
him?
be? Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah,
Cut the ball.
Yeah, Nesh is the instigator, bro. He's always trying to cause issues. Nah, Sal's the nuts.
I've
man.
done way worse to Asala. I think it's not as bad as me punting in the finals of a YCS on his team.
Yeah.
So
But all right, guys, thank you so much for listening to the pod. I'll see you guys next week, and of course, shout out to Jesse again. I'll see you guys. Peace.